Okay, can you see it flooding the paper or the fabric, whichever you're going to use, with water? You can see it spread. Work from the inside out, because if you work that way, you're going to pull the paper into and screw up the paper. Okay. Try and make sure you get all the air bubbles out. It doesn't really matter if there's a few air bubbles in it, because it just makes an interesting pattern in the paper. But just in case you don't want them, try and make sure you're pushing them all out. Now, how wet this gets is important, because especially in this heat, you're going to dry it quite quick, so make sure it's good and wet this time of year. So, plenty of water. There you go. I'm just going to put an extra bit of water on to make sure it's really wet, especially around the edges, so you don't have any problem with it drying at all. Okay, that's it. So let's start off with some white. I'll take the white because it's got blue in it, never mind. There you go, that'll be on it. I'm going to put a bit of white in, really just below the middle. Just loads and loads of white. That will do. I don't want to worry about red, but I'm not going to try and copy that exactly, because it's impossible to copy with this. What you're doing is letting the paint bleed together. Let's take some yellow, dip it into the paint as well. I'm going to put some yellow in here. Again, careful not to pull the paper in this way. Try and work inside out. It's very inside to outside. Very easy for it to damage the paper. If you're using the fabric instead, it's a little bit easier, because you can't really damage it with such tough stuff. The paper's a bit more delicate. It's got a nice lot of yellow in there. What else? Got some nice red. Let's take some red. Dip that in the water as well. Let's start putting in some red. It looks really bold to begin with. It looks really solid and bold, but once it starts to bleed together with all the wetness, all the water, it starts to look really pretty. You've got to have a bit of confidence and not worry about it. At the end of the day, what you put on there doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we're going to let it all dry, let it all bleed together as it wants to, and then later on you can paint something on top, something like those, or anything you want. Or you can actually just leave them as pure colour, because they can look so pretty just in that, very abstract looking, very pretty. So, there's a bit of red, make sure it's good and strong. Put plenty on, because the water will weaken it down. There we go, a bit of red there. Let's have a little bit of the lilac, the mauve. So a bit down here. I think it's quite fun doing this as well. Anybody can do it. Children, I've done this with children actually as well. It's just easy and fun, and letting the paint do its own thing. Let's put a bit of red up here, a bit of purple up here. I really don't mind where we put it, we just have some fun with it. I've got my finger holding the paper down there because it moves around a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say it looks easy to put it in as soon as we come to do it.
It is easy.
It always makes everything look easy.
Yeah.
It is easy. Obviously, I've got more confidence with it because I've developed it and done it myself so many times. But once you've had a go at it, you'll realise it's not so difficult. And I've got a bit more water in it than I normally do because it being so hot. Let's put a bit more red in here.
Even though that looks rounder, will it go longer lines like on the other one, or will it stay round like that? Does it bleed in?
Oh, it'll bleed away. It'll bleed a lot.
Okay.
Because I should tip the fabric around, the paper around
okay.
soon. So I should tip it. And once I tip it, it will bleed a lot. You can see it's starting to bleed now.
Of course, and the bottom. Yeah.
I can use my left hand for a while because the right hand's starting to ache. I mean, obviously you can take much more time than I'm doing it. I'm really just doing it very quickly, just to demonstrate. You can obviously take more time. Let's put a bit more mauve on top of that. I tend to like the edges to be a bit darker than the inside. It's almost like it frames it. But again, that's just my choice. You don't have to do it. I'll just use the edge of it now, just to bring a few lines into that maybe. And a few more into here. Be careful not to put that mauve too close to that yellow.
Why?
Maybe I'll put some...
Because they're contrasting
Because
colours.
they're complementary colours, and if we put them together, we're going to
Makes
get
a
too much
completely
mud.
different colour, right.
This is black, and just going to blacken the edges a bit. Yes, because, you know, like I said, if you've not done this before, then it's best not to go for complementary colours like I've done here. Keep them more harmonising, which I'll tell you more about later. Let's put some blue in here. See if it goes together. When you first put them in, you think, oh, it's so bright, so strong. I mean, I do like strong, bright colours, of course. And you don't have to do them as strong. So, you can go for the colours that you like. It's really...
What kind of paper is that?
This is a Japanese printing paper. I actually have a special paper here. Unfortunately, in my studio, the mice have got to this paper and some of a few chewed up pieces. But the fabric is the special stuff that I found quite nice as well. Which I'll tell you about, but I'm not putting it on there because it's my secret for my students only. That's what I've developed myself, so I keep it for my students. I'm just using the edge of it now, just put a few little lines in. Let's put a little bit purple in
That's
there.
white there, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't even know why I put those colours together like that. I just put the colours together as I fancy at the time. I just play with it.
It's like mist rolling off the sea, doesn't it?
It does a bit, doesn't it? And that's the thing, you put all your colours together, and when it's dry, you can turn it around all sorts of different ways and see what it suggests you. And it's like looking at a cloud really, you think, oh, that looks like a bunny rabbit or something.
Yeah.
That looks like the sunset here now.
You can literally just play with it and see what happens, and then turn it around different directions and it'll suggest something to you.
It does, it looks like sunset in the sea.
Really do lade in it though, don't you?
Yeah, you put plenty on. I mean, you don't have to put as much as this on, this is just the way I like to have it, so it's really, because if you don't put a lot on, as it dries, it'll fade. With watercolours, same as any watercolours, they get lighter and lighter as they dry, and so will this, particularly as you've got so much water in it. So you've got to put it on quite strong, otherwise you lose that. Now, I suppose I could put a bit more yellow in here, but I don't know that I really want to, but let's put it in anyway. See what we get.
Perfect, the reflection.
Yeah, it does look a bit like that, doesn't it? Let's put a bit more purple.
Oh, nice.
On the edges. Now, put plenty on the edges, because that's where the colour's going to come out of first. I'm going to put a bit more blue into that. I've got sort of lines, but once we put the actual, you sort of move it around, some of these lines will, literally lines of colour will bleed together more and will change slightly. A little bit of black around the edges, I think. Okay, that will do. Okay, here we go.
You want to finish? Oh, you want
No. We're going to tip it now. You have to keep soaking it up as it tips. See how it bleeds? You can actually change the direction whatever way you want it to bleed. You've got to watch you don't bleed it too much, because you don't want to mix, especially as I've got complementary colours here and there. Don't want to mix too much. See how it's bleeding? Yeah. Get some interesting effects going on.
Love that bit in the middle, it's gorgeous. Didn't look like anything, did it? And now it's...
Yeah, when you first put it on, it just looks like big solid blobs of ugly colour. You know, I mean, colour's not ugly, but just too solid. But once you start playing with it, and you get all these lovely colours happening. Well, I quite like that. I'm going to leave it as that. Lovely. And I'm going to have to suck up all these wet colours around, otherwise that'll bleed back into the paper and we lose some of that nice colour. Just seen that? That's it, thank you. Take some more of it
That
out.
looks beautiful. That blue and white looks like sky and clouds. It's
Yeah, it
gorgeous.
can suggest all sorts to you, can't it?
Yeah.
Can you imagine all the
With the
different colours you
sunset
can
in
put
the top.
together? And you could put circles, you could put squares, and all sorts of things, and just leave together, make one little effect, just like what we've got over there, and all the colours you fancy. Okay, so all we've got to do now is let that dry. So we can't carry on with that painting now until it's totally dry. That's why we're going to come back to that later on. So just lay that flat, otherwise it'll go on bleeding too much. So leave that to lay flat and let that dry. Okay,
Finished?
and now you can have a go yourselves, yeah?